This is Constant Elevation, the show for rising Air Force and community leaders who seek to define the future. Learn powerful work and life tactics to tackle any challenge. I'm your host, Gabriel Gabrock Avila. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Gabrock back on the mic once again. If you notice from this title of this episode, Freestyle Session 3, basically what you can understand from that is I have too many things in my head, yet they all don't necessarily form to a concise, 10, 15 minute episode, and there's not enough meat there. So I'm just going to combine a bunch of stuff to talk about this week. And so I have a lot of good positive things, things I'm still thinking about throughout the rest of this week, and stuff I'm looking forward to. Quick hits though in the beginning. My morale has improved 39%. And the reason why is because your boy finally got a PlayStation 5. It only took like 4 months. I bought it off of Facebook Marketplace, off of a gamer. I only paid $100 over retail, which is still a lot of money. But I was happy to cop that. And so I've been playing Spider-Man Miles Morales. Beautiful game. I suck at it, but I'm having a good time on that. We're on the tail end of our telework week here in JFH Doden. Today's weather here in Maryland is beautiful. I went on a bike ride earlier right before one of my meetings, and just kind of getting my mindset, listen to some podcasts, listen to some music. So just just enjoying the change in weather. I don't think it's changing by any means. We just hit a good, nice stride. I think it's probably going to be rainy for this weekend because wife and I were talking about taking a hike, but this weekend, and she's like, it's going to be rainy, so that kind of sucks. Another cool thing, recently just got picked up for JPME 2. So that's a joint professional military education part 2. And so it's a 10-week course. Normally, if I was going to go to that course, it'd actually be a 10-week TDY in Norfolk, Virginia. But we're going to be doing it virtually. So I'm going to be in full academic mode. Like, I'm not going to be doing like a little bit of academics and a little bit of work. It is full academics. And so I'm looking forward to that. I say that now. I think there's going to be a pretty writing and reading intensive, but I'm looking forward to that. I think with my job now as Ops Assessment Chief, I've been enjoying just that critical thinking and looking at problems through critical eyes and trying to do some better analysis of things. And so I think I'm currently in the right mindset to kind of step into the academic thing and see what I can contribute from there. So very much looking forward to that. It's going to go from like the end of March until the beginning of June, 10 weeks. So it's going to be a pretty big chunk that I won't be in the office. But there's been those are just a small hits that were going on this week. But I do have 3 things. So I had a conversation with a homie, very handsome one, very fellow peer of mine, and we had this conversation. It was really kind of weird, where he basically was saying he was getting frustrated with some of his peers, and I was like, peers like what? Like peers like airmen or peers like O5s? And what are you talking about? And essentially the conversation kind of leaned towards, he was in an environment where he saw other O5s, other peers of his, starting to kind of undercut each other. It was starting to get in like this weird competitive environment to where like you just started to see true colors, where people were just always putting their problems over anybody else's, and they didn't care about the larger, bigger picture of stuff going on. They only cared about their problems. And so that kind of reminded me of when I gave my, what to do and not to do in your first 90 days of command. One of the first things I told to those selected, I'm actually doing another one of those seminars tomorrow. And so that's going to be kind of cool. I'm going to use the same material that I talked about a couple episodes ago. But if you remember, one of the talking points I put in there is like, do not be competitive. Don't be competitive with your peers. Do your job and understand what exactly it is, how it's contributing to the bigger picture. That's what we need you to do as a squadron commander. And I think that he's in an environment right now that's not happening, because he was like, well, we had a good time at JBear. How come all of a sudden it didn't seem like there was competition there? I'm like, because there wasn't. All of us kind of understood. We had our functional roles, and we understood the interconnection between all of us. And when we talk about stuff, it was never a thing of, hey, so my problem is more important than yours, and so therefore I need all the attention, or I need to make sure the resources go my way. Like, it's a bigger picture kind of thing. And so I understand, maybe because inherently as a, if you want to call it a support function, but in the comm side, I know where the things in the rank of order of importance, where mine normally fit. And sometimes they go really high, sometimes they're in the middle, sometimes they're in the back end. And that's okay. But I think I understood that as a function. But as a person, as a leader, as a commander amongst peers, I never gotten into the point where like, well, I'm going to try and get the spotlight and I want to make sure my stuff always gets the most attention. That's a dick move. I was never going to be that kind of leader. And so his frustration, I think it goes into where people start to think about these are my problems, and it's just a nuance of language. Instead of thinking about things as this is my problem, like this is our problem, right? It's a whole thing of as a team, how do we approach this together? And some people get this. Here's one thing that's going on currently at work. I think there's this weird dichotomy where you have competing ideologies of, hey, so let's go ahead and make progress, but make sure we bring together as much people as possible together. Let's make progress, but you can kind of hear when I say you want to try and bring as many people as possible. Some people will say that like, well, that means we have to wait for everybody to catch up. Like, okay, potentially that's what I'm talking about, because I'm saying if I want to have the most people moving together as a team, then yes, that means you take the deliberate time to make sure all of us understands what's going on, and we can disagree on certain nuances, but at least we're moving forward together. And the other ideology is like, well, I don't have time to wait on everybody because the urgency of the job needs to get done now, so I'm just going to move forward. And so, and potentially at the expense of other teammates, where those teammates don't know what you're doing. It seems disconnected when you're talking in front of leadership, where they know certain things and the other team doesn't know certain things, where they should know exactly what the subject is. And so there is this, and I don't know what the perfect answer is, to be honest. I think the answer, unfortunately, is it depends. But in this situation, I am actually leaning towards the idea of it's better in a bigger picture as a staff for us to move together versus one team within the staff moving forward, potentially because they have they feel that sense of urgency to make certain things happen, where I don't believe that sense of urgency is actually a warranted feeling. But they have their own thought process. They're going to move forward. And I'm like, okay, I just have in my head, I'm like, I'm telling you right now, and I've been seeing this over the last year and a half since I've been here. And a staff itself is just kind of odd anyway. It's not a squad. It's not like the normal Air Force kind of squadron group wing mentality. It's a staff function, right? And so some of those, when you have disconnections on a staff, it can have huge amounts of negative effects. And I do see it still happening right now. And you have very strong personalities where they're just unwilling to, if you want to call it compromise or just unwilling to work together, all those words are all correct. And so this is where, my buddy was saying he just feels frustrated. He's frustrated because he's in a scenario, not the same as mine, but like we are having similar kind of frustrations to where we see these things happening and they can be overcome by just simple changes in behavior, simple changes in mindset to be like, hey, so nobody's more important. We together as a team are the ones that actually have to make this work. And so let's work together. And by kind of removing some of those barriers and making sure you work together, I think that would be more important and actually gives more positive impact versus screw it. I don't have time to wait for here, because I don't think that sense of urgency applies in my situation, nor do I think it applies in his situation. But people have a different take on exactly what's most important. But I think, and I remember that was some of my feedback that I got last week too. If you remember one of my other episodes when I talked about like some of the feedback I got was, hey, so make sure you don't move so fast where you leave teammates behind. Like, yeah, that I remember, and I started thinking more about that this week. And I'm like, yeah, I want to make it a point here as a growing staff that we don't leave anybody behind. Not everybody shares that same mindset. So what happens? What should you do when you're encountering with this kind of situation? I think in the end, what's going to happen is you're going to have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable and potentially start doing things for what you believe is going to be the bigger positive impact. And for me, in my situation here, it is maintaining the integrity of the team. It's not the, hey, so I got to get this done, whatever this happens to be, at the expense of the team. I want to make sure the team and starts to build build those bridges versus burning some of the bridges. That's what I feel like is going to happen for the Leroy Jenkins just going off in one direction. That direction may be warranted, but that's still I don't agree with that approach, because I think there's this bigger idea of trying to make sure the team evolves together, and that's going to have a longer lasting, legacy is the wrong word, but like a longer lasting timeline of being there versus the potential sporadic positive things that the Leroy Jenkins is doing his own thing is going to have over time. So that's some of my feedback to him was like, hey man, so I understand it's frustrating, and we talked about just what we were talking about now. And then I ended it as saying like, hey, so probably the more important thing that you always have to keep in mind is, while this, and we're talking about at our peer level, so O5s and potentially higher. And it's like, so those frustration, those weird personality traits that unfortunately are affecting, that has a larger effect on the staff below them. That's the part that I always worry about. And so the idea where if I'm making decisions or trying to create changes or something like that, am I doing it for the betterment of the team? For the people that work, that are looking up to me in the chain of command to be like, yeah, so you're a division chief, you're a squadron commander, you're a leader. Are you looking out for our best interests, or are you just looking out for yourself? You're trying to make yourself look good and show, look what I can do. Ooh, I did the shiny thing. But then, like, behind the curtains, there's a lot of dirt. There's a lot of angry people and frustrations and harumph kind of stuff. Like, then it's not good. Like, that your shiny objects are not worth it anymore. And so I think he got a better kind of recharge of understanding that, like, his frustrations are warranted, but, like, if he makes certain decisions for the larger team, those are the right things to do. And you're going to find the right people who are going to be on board with that. And that's where you need to kind of share your energy with and make sure you support them, because you get that, like, multiplicity kind of thing to where, yeah, you have more people along the same wavelength. You're just going to have a better positive effect versus having to dedicate all your energy. That Leroy Jenkins is going to go over there. Depending on what it is, we may have to give him backup. And I would never just let somebody go off on their own and just be like, fuck it, I hope he or she fails. Like, that person is still part of our team, so we inevitably are connected. But just something to think about as far as, like, as you're conducting yourself as a leader amongst whatever peer group that you are, think about that second and third order effect as far as, what exactly am I doing now? Is this really the best thing for the team at large? And do you really think that's the best thing for the team at large as an enduring foundation versus the short-term kind of positive things you think are going to be a huge hit and a huge success, but inevitably they're just kind of small sparks. So just weird kind of thing going through my head. I'll still be thinking about this over the next week as well. A couple other things. I got two more things. As I was reading some of the material, some of my personal books upstairs, got two quotes, and I just want to cover them. One of them was, you can be knowledgeable with other men's knowledge, but you can't be wise with other men's wisdom. I'll say it again. You can be knowledgeable with other men's knowledge, but you can't be wise with other men's wisdom. So here's some of my handwritten notes. If you go into, I think if you put this in the, I'll put this in the show notes if you guys want to watch it or read it, I should say. Knowledge is internal. Wisdom is shared. And knowledge is inert, but wisdom is knowledge being put into action. Good leaders understand both knowledge and wisdom never stop growing. You should be open to new ideas, and you should be willing to share your experiences, both the good and bad, which implies you actually have both. You've actually have some bad experiences, some failures. But in the end, your actions must remain uniquely yours, and you must take full ownership of them. And so the difference between knowledge and wisdom, I'm sure there's quotes out there to kind of explain it and research papers. But yeah, I'm looking for the reason why I feel like I have a lot of knowledge, but what that means is I have a lot of experience. I've been in the Air Force for 18, 19 years. And so I have built-in knowledge. I have built-in experience. But the wisdom piece that I try and impart, this is why I started and continue to do this podcast. This is why I continue to write books. This is why I remain active on the leadership seminars that I get invited to and trying to find places where I can be a good mentor. Because I want to impart wisdom. Wisdom doesn't necessarily mean you have the answers. It's just sharing certain perspectives and sharing certain ideas to everybody, and then allowing them to come up with their own analysis of that. You could, by all means, you could be like, I think Colonel Villa is full of shit, and I would never do that because of X, Y, Z. But like, good. That means you're thinking about it. You're not just repeating whatever I say and doing it. You have a deeper understanding, and you make your own individual decision. That, to me, is wisdom. Knowledge is where, like, ooh, I learned this thing out of his book. I'm just going to kind of apply it and do it without really just kind of go through the motions. That's knowledge, and that's using it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would argue that I want you to be more on the wisdom side, to where I'm hoping that I kind of spark some ideas, and then you figure out the unique ways you put these into your practice. So don't just... It's not going to be worth it by just retaining all your knowledge in your head and just keeping it for yourself. I'm like, oh, I got the secrets to success, and I'm just going to keep it to myself because I want to be the successful one. I think that's selfish. That's your ego kind of talking. You want to be part of a community. You want to be part of a larger thing in this world. You should be imparting wisdom. Okay, so just make sure you can find. And everybody has different methods they can do that. But that's what I'm trying to do from my position, impart my wisdom, whatever that means. And trust me, it's probably a lot more failures and bullshit versus good stories, whatever it is. But as long as you're learning for it, that's what it's going to be. Final quote. So probably appropriate for Black History Month. So from Martin Luther King Jr. And I think this is a synopsis of what he said, but I think it's really good. Your work should have length, something you get better at over a lifetime. Your work should also have breadth. It should touch many other people. And your work should have height. It should put you in service to some ideal and satisfy the soul's yearning for righteousness. So that's deep, right? You're talking about multi-angles as far as when he's talking about work, it's really like, what are you, the book was talking about like what your vocation or what you're going to occupy, the primary things of what you're producing in this world. That's what work means. And so that's what kind of stuff I'm trying to do here. So something that I can get better at over a lifetime. I think being a leader and being my personality itself started as a lieutenant, and now being a lieutenant colonel, all that jazz, and the multiple kind of jobs that I've had. I still have some Air Force ahead of me, and I want to be a better leader. And so that's the kind of stuff. And through my lifetime, when I retire out of the Air Force and I get a different job, whatever it is, there's still going to be some characteristics that carry through. Me as an Air Force officer, me as a fitness coach, me as a dad, me as a husband, all those things is just a lifetime things of me as a person. How to touch many other people. And so it's the idea of, I like going out and being in the community and sharing. If you know me, you know I like talking. I'll talk about anything because I just like talking. But the idea is trying to help find different nuances of people, how to communicate, and being better about communication. And it's my sharing. That's the sharing part I want to do. I deliberately do things on social media and don't things on social media because I'm just not comfortable with certain things. And that's okay. I understand those limitations. But if you know me in person, I hope to get to meet many of you. I feel like I'm a pretty good dude as far as like being able to just kind of understand and being a good person out in the community. And then finally, putting your service to something ideal to satisfy the soul's yearning for righteousness. I'm getting more in touch with like this deeper sense of like my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing here. That can be executed in different methods throughout my lifetime, but I have a good sense. I have a really good base of where I want to go, the kind of person I want to be, and I am right now. And it's all positive. There's a lot of good things going on in my life, and I hope they're going on in your lives as well. And if they're not going right, you still have time. You still have methods to kind of make it right. And so just finding your ideal purpose and where that's going to lead you to. So all positive things moving in that direction. Freestyle Session 3. Like I said, there wasn't really any tying unique thing that unified like just one episode title or whatever it is, but a lot of couple things. So a few things on my mind I wanted to share, and I hope that it kind of continues to kind of give you some insight as to what the kind of leader I am and the kind of leader you want to strive to be. So I think this is going to be the last one in February, already heading into March. So hope you guys stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.